In the new ham radio workshop, today we're going to talk about the best HT handy talkie, the best handheld ham radio that you can get for 2020, and it's coming up right now.
Shut up and sit down.
Okay, guys, welcome to Ham Radio 2.0. My name's Jason, and my call sign's KC5HWB. And on this channel, we do reviews, news, and how-tos of everything that's new in amateur radio. This video is part of the new ham workshop. It's a new series of videos that I'll be putting up on YouTube. That'll be a playlist for people who just got their license. Okay, so today, the newest thing in amateur radio is you. You are new in amateur radio, and this video is for you. So what is the best handheld ham radio to get in 2020? We're going to talk about that today. Okay, the first thing I will say, okay, with all seriousness, now hear me out on this. I think you should get the radio. You're talking about buying your first HT. An HT is an acronym for handy talkie. That's what we call in amateur radio a handheld radio. A walkie, some people call it a walkie-talkie. In ham radio, you're going to hear it referred to as an HT, a handy talkie. That's what this is. It's just a handheld portable radio, so with a battery. So my suggestion to you is to get the most expensive radio that you can afford. Now, let me explain what I mean by that, okay? I'm gonna start here, and I'm gonna list several radios that you can look at. And I'm gonna start with the cheapest one, and I'm gonna go up to the most expensive one. So just understand that, yeah, you can go and you can get a radio for less than $30. Okay, you can buy a brand new ham radio, handheld, a Chinese HT for less than $30. There's a couple of models. I'm gonna show you both those here in just a second. Just realize that when you do that, that's an entry-level radio. It's not going to be a radio that you're going to still want to be using in a year from now or a couple years from now, maybe not even 6 months from now. Okay, once you get used to using the radio and talking on repeaters and talking on simplex to your friends, hopefully there's a group of you that got licensed together, maybe your family, you're going to want to upgrade at some point. So my suggestion is to start with the upgrade. Okay, if you can afford a $100 radio, then don't go and buy a $30 radio for your first radio. If you can afford a $300 radio, then don't go buy a $30 or $100 radio for your first radio. Generally speaking, I would say, and again, we're going to talk about these models here in just a second. Generally speaking, I would say, starting with the models that are between $75 and $150 is a good starting point. Okay, the $100, $125 models is a good starting point. It's going to give you a much better quality radio than anything that's $30, but it's going to keep you from having to spend $300 to $400 to $500 also. And there's some of those out there. We're going to talk about that as well. So when I say buy the most expensive radio that you can afford, you decide your budget. You know what your budget is. Okay, I'm not telling you to go out and spend $500 on your first radio unless you can afford to, and then do that. So we're going to talk about several models upcoming right now. Let's get going. All right, the first thing is, and those of you who might have watched my show for a while, you're not going to believe me when I tell you this. I have never owned a Baofeng UV5R. Okay, but that's the one we're going to talk about because that's probably the most popular HT in ham radio today, especially for hams who just got their license. They go out to Amazon, they buy an HT, and it's this one because they range from $27 to $32. So during this presentation, I'm going to be adding all of these radios to a list that's on kit.co. You can see the link in the YouTube description below. You can click on that list, and you can see all the radios in order that I'm going to talk about on this show today, and with links to them that go back to Amazon. And yes, it is an Amazon affiliate program, so I make a little bit of money from those links, but you can buy them wherever you want to. Doesn't matter. So the Baofeng UV5R is definitely the bottom of the line. And when I say that, I'm talking price. Now, some people will argue it's also the bottom of the line quality, okay? I've actually seen something that's less quality than a UV5R, but leaving that aside for the moment. The UV5R is a dual band radio, which means it covers 2 meters and 440, which are the 2 meter band, the 144 to 148 megahertz, is the most popular amateur radio band. That's where most of your repeaters are, especially if you're outside of a metroplex and if you're in the country or you're in more of a rural area, you've probably got 1 or 2 2-meter repeaters near you, if anything. Okay, so it'll do dual band, 2 meters and 440. It'll hold 128 channels. It is programmable from the front panel, or you can use Chirp, a free program you can download and install on a Windows PC, and it will work on other versions of operating systems also. And you can use Chirp to program all your channels into the radio from a computer. But you can do either or. You can program it by hand. You can program it from a computer, whichever. So that, at the time of this recording, that radio on Amazon is right around $27, just under $30. But I've seen it fluctuate anywhere between $26 or so and $33, depending on what time of year you're looking at it. So that's an entry-level radio. They work. Some people say they don't sound very good. That's a matter of opinion. But it is definitely the starting point. And if you choose to get one of these, just realize that 6 months, a year from now, you're going to want to be using something else. You're not going to want to stick with this model. The second one I would direct you to would be basically a big brother to the UV5R, which is a UV82. The UV82 has got a different form factor. It's a little bit taller and skinnier. It's thinner this way, and it's taller this way. It's got a better antenna, and it comes in either a 5-watt model or an 8-watt model. So you can get, and they're still both dual bands, just the same as UV5R. You can get this one. The screen's the same. The programming's the same. It'll work with Chirp. Same thing. It's just a little. It's got a bigger battery on it, and it's got a better antenna. One thing about the UV5R I failed to mention is that you probably, if you buy UV5R, get an aftermarket antenna for it, because the antenna that comes with the UV5R is kind of junk. But this one comes with a better antenna. It's a little bit heavier duty, so if you drop it on the floor, it's not as bad of a chance that it's going to shatter into about 19 pieces. And it sounds a little bit better too. It's got a little bit better receiver on it. They're a little bit more expensive, especially for the 8-watt model, which is more power. The UV5R is going to be 5 watts on 2 meters and 4 watts on 440. This one's going to be 8 watts on 2 meters and like 6 or 7 watts on 440 for the 8-watt model, or you can get a 5-watt model that matches the UV5R. But this would probably be the next step up for someone that's looking to buy a new radio. But again, this is not an end solution either. You're going to want to be replacing this after you get used to talking on the radio, after you get used to using repeaters. This is not an endpoint radio. This is a beginner's radio. The next radio, and I almost didn't include this one just because it's so new, and I actually don't have one in my hands yet. But a good friend of mine, Chris, at one of the local clubs, he picked one up, and he really likes it. So TYT just came out with a brand new model called a UV88, a TH-UV88. And I'll do an overlay here. You can see what it looks like, and that will be linked in the kit.co link as well. But it is about $35 roughly, and it's dual band and 2 meter 440. It's got a little bit stronger looking, heavier duty form factor to it, and it holds more channels than the Baofeng does. Okay, so the Baofeng's 128 channels, like I said. This one holds 200 channels. Okay, so it's a little bit more memory capacity. It's still 5 watts. It's still dual band. And it's got a little bit bigger screen, so it's a little bit easier to see. I've got one of those coming to me at the time of this recording that I will be doing a review on this channel, but as of yet, I haven't done it. So those three are basically it for sub $50 radios. Okay. There's probably a few more models out there. These are ones that I personally have had contact with, and or I have friends. I've got a couple of friends that have used the TH UV88, and I've used a lot of different radios by TYT, and I like the quality of radio they produce for the price range that they're in. So once again, we'll be adding that to the lineup. The next series of radios is going to be in your $75 to $150 range. Okay, so these are going to be the ones that are just simply better quality. Better quality, better receivers, better battery life. Something that, you know, a year or two from now, if you're still in the ham radio, hopefully you are, and maybe you've purchased one or two additional radios by that time. Maybe you've gotten a mobile radio in your car. You'll probably still go back to these radios at a certain point in time. So the first one I'll tell you about is a brand new from Yaesu, and it's called an FT-4XR. It's a dual band radio. It sells for about $75. This is a very new dual band HT on the market from Yaesu. Yaesu is one of the Japanese manufacturers. Anything they make is generally going to be better than a Chinese radio. This is a very basic rule of thumb I've given you. It's not a hard and fast 100% of the time. But the FT-4XR has been called a Baofeng killer. It is about $75 from HRO or gigaparts.com or something like that. Again, it's linked in the description below, in the kit.com, kit.co link below. All of these radios are down there. And it's going to be a much higher quality, heavier duty radio that you can keep for a long time and still be happy with. Still 5 watts on both bands, 5 watts and 4 watts, 5 watts on 2 meters, 4 watts on 440. Got about 200 memory channels in it, so it's about the same as the TYT, but it's going to give you a much better sound quality from the speaker as you're listening, and it's going to give you much better audio quality from as you're transmitting into a repeater. Along the same lines of the brand new 4XR, going a little bit up in price, is the semi-new Yaesu FT-65. And then its big brother, the FT-60. Now, the FT-60 has been around for a long time. It's tried and true. It's not got any really bells and whistles, and it is a dual band. One of the things I don't like about the FT-60 is it's only single band display. Now, what does that mean? Basically, it means you can program it to talk on 2 meters or 440 on both bands, but you have to choose on the display which one it's showing. So you can't have 2 meters and 440 both showing and monitoring on the display at the same time. You can monitor one channel and one band at a time, and that's a limitation of that radio. But they've kept the FT-60 around. It's been around so long because it's solid, it's reliable, and it just works. So for a $150 price point, you're going to have a radio that you're probably going to keep in your arsenal and use for a long, long time. Next on the list, and these are some of my favorite radios, because of the versatility of them. Okay, so there's another Chinese company out there called Wouxun. That's the proper way to pronounce it, or it's semi-close. It's spelled Wouxun. Some people call it Wouxun. You've heard it referred to maybe as Wouxun. Wouxun is the correct Chinese way to pronounce it. So I'm told. I don't speak Chinese, but that's what I've been told. So this series of radios is going to be somewhere in the $100 range. $89 to $129, maybe upwards of $150, depending on which one you buy with which features. Some of the UV9X Plus radios, which is this one right here, can get up to about $180. The cool thing about these radios is these are much more solid, much more sturdy, and they've just got a heavier duty feel to them when you hold them in your hand than anything that Baofeng makes. This was one of my first, not displayed here as a UV, it's a KG UV-D1P. And that was the first Chinese radio I ever bought, and I still have it. I think it's at my hunting lease right now because that's where I use it most of the time. But it is solid radio. I've had it for 7 years, and it still works very well. So the great thing about these radios, you've got this one over here is the UV7 Delta. So here's the basic order of things. They've got some older models that are UV3 and then a letter. So they're referred to as UV3X. It could be UV3D or UV3E or something like that. Okay, so they got a UV3 series, they've got a UV6 series, they've got a UV7 series, which is this one, UV8 series, UV9 series. Okay, and then you've got UV8 Delta, UV8 Echo, etc., etc. So the UV6s and 7s are still in production, and they're solid radios for right around the $100 mark. You can get those at buy2aradios.com. And these are going to be very similar in features to the Baofeng radios, or probably a little bit closer to the Yaesu radios. They're more solid, more heavy duty, at least the feel in your hand, like you drop it and you don't think it's going to shatter into a bunch of pieces. They have 199, the 7 series has 199 memory channels. It is still 5 watts on 2 meters and 4 watts on 440. So you've got similar options there, similar programming to the Baofeng radios, all programmable via Chirp, the free software that you can download to program from your computer and that kind of thing. So a good choice for the $100 mark. Stepping up a bit, past the UV7 series is the UV8 series and the UV9 series. Now, the good thing about these radios, they look very similar. They have similar features. They both have the same screen, which is a much larger screen. That's a color screen, and you can see it better. It's not just the monochrome skinny screen like this. It's much bigger like that. And you can, and they have 999 memory channel capacity. Both of these do. Okay, so the main difference between the 8 series and the 9 series, it's that the 9 series also encompasses a lot of receive bands. You can receive on 220 with this one. You can receive on the aircraft band. You can receive on 900 megahertz, I think. It's got like 6 or 8 bands in it that you can receive. It'll only let you transmit on 2 meters and 440 in the amateur radio bands, but you can use it to scan other bands and listen to traffic on multi-bands. So a little bit nicer of a feature there. If you're looking for something that does that, that's a good option. This one right here, around the $100 price point, has the capability to add an extended battery of 2,600 milliamp hours. And I have that battery on my radio, and I can turn the radio on and sit it on my desk and monitor a repeater for like 3 days before the battery dies. Now, if you key up and transmit, it's going to run your battery down a little bit faster. But if you're just monitoring, it lasts a long time because the battery capacity is so high. Most of these radios will have somewhere around a 17 or 1800 milliamp hour battery stock from the factory. This one comes with an 1800, but you can get a 2600 as an aftermarket upgrade for it. Same thing for this one, but it has bigger and more capable receiver on different bands that you can scan around and listen to traffic. Police departments, fire departments, if they're on analog. Aircraft band, other amateur radio bands where you can't transmit on that radio, but you can monitor that kind of thing. You can kind of listen and see where you might want to buy your next radio for whatever band you're listening to. Now we're getting into the radios that are going to cost you a couple of dollars to get into. This is going to be basically $400 and up. These radios are the high end from some of the best Japanese manufacturers out there, including Yaesu, ICOM, and Kenwood. So not pictured here right now is an ICOM ID51A, which is a dual band D-Star radio. D-Star is one of the digital voice modes used in amateur radio today. You can, if you want to know about D-Star, there's plenty of videos on my channel that explain it. I don't own an ID51A, but I will put an overlay up here over it. The ID51 is just north of $400. It has GPS and a large memory capacity, and it'll do analog and D-Star on both 2 meters and 440. So the competitor to that from Yaesu, the latest and greatest, is the FT-3 Delta. It has a lot of new features, including a touchscreen that is a color touchscreen, and it will do Yaesu's System Fusion. Now, I don't suggest specifically getting into digital voice as your first radio, unless that is the reason you got your license. Now, some hams I've talked to, they're like, well, all of my buddies are on D-Star, or all of my friends are telling me I should get into DMR, so I need to go get my ham license. Great, do that. Wonderful. But if you're just getting into ham radio and you don't really understand what digital voice is, there's really not a high-end radio you can get that doesn't have digital voice in it today. These radios here are going to be top of the line for whatever they're doing, whatever different digital modes they're doing. And they're going to include analog, which is just normal 2 meters and 440, and some digital voice mode. At the time of this recording, there is no radio out there yet that will do more than one digital voice mode in the amateur radio spectrum. So the Yaesu System Fusion FT3D is their top of the line. It's about $450. The Kenwood THD74A, with my antenna here that's well used, you can see, is over $500. It's about $525 to $550 right here. The main difference is this one's got a little bit brighter screen to it. It's not touch screen, but the main difference is that while this one does Yaesu System Fusion, which is Yaesu's digital voice mode, this one will do D-Star, which is the same mode that the ICOM will do, but this one's also a tri-band. This incorporates the 220 megahertz band into 2 meters and 440. So this one's got an extra band that none of the other radios I've talked about today have used. Now, I'm probably going to do another video upcoming about what the best tri-band radio is, and this will be the top of the line tri-band radio for that video as well. But this one is about $100 more than this one. And unless you just really, really want D-Star, this one's probably going to be too much money for an entry for your first radio, honestly. And because you can get the ICOM ID51A for about $100 less than this one. It doesn't have as many features like a built-in terminal node controller, Bluetooth and GPS. Both of these have Bluetooth and GPS. It doesn't have some of the extra features like that. The ICOM doesn't have 220. The ICOM does have GPS, but it doesn't have the third band in it. But it's $100 less. So if you're just wanting to get started, I would probably suggest the ICOM if you're wanting to go with D-Star. I almost didn't display this one, but since I have it here, I wanted to tell you about it. And it's definitely the highest dollar handheld that's on the video today. And unless you're just, like I said, really wanting to start at the very top of the line, that would be here. Some people will argue that this is actually a better, more top of the line radio than this, even though this one's $100 less than this one. Again, this is a Kenwood D74, and this is a Yaesu FT3D. Yaesu also makes an FT1DR, which is discontinued, and they make an FT2DR, which is looks almost exactly like this, except it's got a black and white monochrome screen. This one's got a color screen, which is touchscreen. The batteries are interchangeable on all of those Yaesu models. The drop-in car chargers are interchangeable on all of them. So makes it easy if you want to get one today, find one, use it to Hamfest, and want to upgrade later. But the battery capacity and is actually a lot. This one have a much longer battery life than this one does. The difference, of course, is that this one will do 220, and D-Star, this one's just dual band. This one's tri-band, this one's dual band, and this one does Yaesu System Fusion. So it really depends on what you're going for. If you're going to do D-Star or Yaesu System Fusion, you're going to have to pay a little bit more money. Now, some people are going to yell at me because I didn't have the Anytone sitting up there at the beginning. And I'm going to do another video upcoming on the best DMR HT to buy. Okay, but these three radios right here represent the three most common digital modes in amateur radio today: Yaesu System Fusion, DMR, and D-Star. So this Anytone, this is a Chinese radio, while these other two are Japanese made. This is a Chinese radio, and this is an Anytone AT878 Plus. And it's dual band. It will do 2 meters and 440. It's got APRS, it's got Bluetooth, and it does DMR, digital mobile radio. DMR is another digital voice mode. Again, I'm not going to really discuss the differences between all those today. I'll do that in a later on video. But this one here is probably going to be the choice for more people because the price point. This one's only about $239. They make a D868, an 878, and an 878 Plus. The difference is the 878 Plus has APRS and Bluetooth added to it. The 868 had GPS regular. The 878 had APRS, but no Bluetooth. The Plus has Bluetooth. So those are probably the pinnacle of dual band handheld DMR radios for the amateur radio community today. And this one is going to be less expensive than these other two. But once again, if you're wanting to get into digital voice, figure out where you want to talk. If you just want to get into it for just the sake of getting into it, figure out what repeaters are near you. Check Repeater Book or check R-Finder. Look it up online. See if you've got Yaesu System Fusion repeaters, DMR repeaters, or D-Star repeaters near you, and then purchase a radio according to whatever's around you or whoever you want to talk to. If you're planning on purchasing a hotspot, talk about that in a later video also. If you're planning on purchasing a hotspot, then figure out who you want to talk to. The hotspots will do multi-mode. The radios will not. So you're going to have to, if you buy a hotspot, you'll be able to do all the modes, but you'll have to have a radio from each mode to use the mode on the hotspot. So that is what that is. So that was that was a much longer video than, but I wanted to get that. I had a lot of information to share, and I wanted to make sure I covered everything. We can go into more detail in a later video. I'm going to do one, like I said, about your first tri-band HT. I'm going to do one about your first DMR HT. Put your comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I should add something to the list. Maybe I'll do another video. Maybe I'll do an update to this one in a couple months. And let me know if you have one of these radios, what you think about it. And let me know what your new call sign is if you're a newly licensed ham, 73. And we'll catch you next time.